This is a quilt as you go for beginners. It's a mug rug sewing tutorial, and when we stitch the front side of the mug rug, quilt as you go will also stitch on the back like so. So you're doing the quilting on the back of your work as well as stitching the front down. I have over 300 sewing and quilting tutorials right now on my channel, so don't forget to subscribe. Quilt as you go is exactly what it implies. We are going to be quilting our mug rug sewing project as we sew it. So the dimensions that you are going to need is you're going to need a piece of batting, quilting batting, which is 6 inches by 7 inches. You can play with these sizes of your mug rug. You don't actually have to have it this size. Now this is the backing section, and this backing section is going to be exactly the same size as the mug rug. And obviously we're quilting this as we go, so we need to have the backing on as well as when we're doing the front of our work. Quilt as you go sewing projects are brilliant for scraps, and as you can see I have a whole bunch of scraps. So we're going to be doing this quilt as you go mug rug with my scrap. Obviously I'm not going to use all of these, but some of them. Now because this is a mug rug and I'm not going to use this particular piece, I'm going to actually cut it down a little bit because I want to, should I have it going this way? Maybe I'll have it going this way. That'd be perfect size across. I am just going to cut a little bit off here to make it a bit more narrower. Now for this quilt as you go sewing project, you're going to have to start with 2, and then you're going to have 1 on top of the other, and they are going to be right sides facing. Obviously this doesn't have a pattern. If this had a pattern, then it would be right side to right side and place them on top just like so. Now what we're going to do is going to take this over to the sewing machine next, and we are going to stitch down 1/4 of an inch all the way down here. I sew using my Baby Lock Soprano. I'll take that down. I'm going to be using the factory settings for a straight stitch. And the great thing about the Baby Lock Soprano is it will show you which foot to actually use for this particular stitch. And I'm going to put my pivot key on, and I'll show you what that does in a little bit. And in the top thread here, I have a nice bright pink polyester thread, and in my bobbin area here you can see this nice bright pink bobbin. I always sew with a 9014 Microtex sewing needle, and these are the stitch settings that I'm going to be using on my Baby Lock Soprano today for doing my quilt as you go. So I have both of my fabrics right sides together, and I'm going to stitch all the way down here. Now that pivot key, what that pivot key does is it erases this presser foot every time, so I don't have to keep going to the back of the machine lifting this presser foot up. It automatically goes down every time I lift on the accelerator, and it will raise up. It's perfect for doing corners for when you want to pivot, but this is a straight line, but I still like to use it. So this is the first stitch that we created, and we are going to fold this back, and then with your iron you're going to press it into place. It's a good idea to press as you go. Now when we turn our work over, you're going to see that we have this stitch on the back. So as you can see, we are quilting as we go. So I am going to get my next piece of fabric, and I'm going to put it right sides facing on this next piece here. So I have my next section here, and I'm going to do it face down. So I'm doing this pattern to pattern side so you can see. So this is the pattern here, so it's right sides to right sides, and I'm going to place that down, and then we're going to sew this into place. This is a beginner's quilt as you go tutorial. So this is the next piece that is stitched into place, and we're going to fold it over and we're going to press. If you do have some really long tails here, you can cut them off if they're not bothering you. Just keep on going. I have the next piece for our mug rug, and this is going to go up here and it's going to go right sides facing, and once again we're going to take it over to the sewing machine and we are going to sew that 1/4 of an inch into place. Then you're going to fold this back over and you are going to press. And I'm just going to turn it over here, and you can see how the quilting is being stitched on the back as we are doing the front sections. This is what your mug rug will end up looking like so far, and then when we turn it around you'll see the quilting on the back. Now if you don't like this kind of contrasting thread, all you need to do is select a thread for the back that perfectly matches the back here, and if you can't get it to perfectly match, just go a little shade darker and it'll be fine. So what we are going to do now is we need to tidy up these ends, so we're going to chop these ends off, and also where you see a little bit of batting, just cut that to the size of your backing. You shouldn't need to worry about these bits here, they should stay down, and obviously this is not a self-binding Quilt As You Go mug rug, so we need to do our binding around the mug rug. Now I'm going to link down below my quilting tutorial for doing a binding around a quilt, and it's exactly the same method for doing it around a mug rug. One thing to remember when you are doing your binding, if you stitch it to the front of your work, the stitches will be here and you'll be flipping your binding to the back and then hand stitching. So if you want to hand stitch the front, you have to attach your binding to the back of your work, and then when you flip it over you'll be hand stitching to the front of your work. Once I have the front of my binding attached by the machine, I will flip it over, and as you can see with my wonder clips right here, I'll go through and I will hand stitch this binding into place. I don't really like using my sewing machine to finish off binding. I find it's much better finish if you hand stitch. So whichever side you're hand stitching, I'm hand stitching to the back because I have sewn the front into place. As you can see with Quilt As You Go, it will stitch on the front, and we are also finishing off the back like so. If you have enjoyed this tutorial, please don't forget to subscribe. It really helps my channel when you do that. Leave a comment and like this video. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.